You have announced today that Essex County Council is to become the first council in the country to introduce a social impact bond to improve the future of vulnerable children. How will this work?
Well, the idea is to raise extra money from an outside body, an outside finance house, to invest in looking after vulnerable children, and probably children that are presently under care with the County Council. We have too many of them. There are too many looked after children within the County Council, and it's really important that we do what we can to prevent them coming into care in the first place. It's much better that the children stay and living with their families. So the social impact bond will enable us to work with the families, with the parents and with the children to ensure that the children can be kept living safely with their families. In the long term, it will mean that the costs of children in care are huge. Not only is it not a good thing for the children themselves, but it does cost the County Council and therefore the taxpayer a lot of money. And so we will be able to save significant sums of money, and then of course we can reinvest those savings into looking after other children and other vulnerable people.
You also announced today that the budget had prioritised spending on economic infrastructure and safeguarding the most vulnerable in our society. Can you give us some examples of how this will be achieved?
Yes, well, a number of things, a couple of examples. The first is the Rolling Investment Fund, which we've announced that we will be setting up. We'll be investing £20 million over a 5-year period. Some of that money will be matched by our district and borough council colleagues, and then we'll be seeking investment from the private sector as well. The idea is to invest in infrastructure projects earlier than perhaps we might have been able to do. An example, if we invest, say, £1 million into a road scheme which will enable housing to be built or industrial estate to be built, the return from extra rates can then be reinvested back into the fund, and we can then reinvest that money into another infrastructure later on. Second one, we've decided to put £100,000 next year into credit unions. We've been supporting credit unions for some years, but it's really important that we do what we can to help vulnerable people who find it difficult to borrow money, to borrow small sums of money from the credit unions. So we're doing what we can to support the credit unions in that valuable work. And thirdly, broadband. Hugely important that we get Essex connected up to super fast broadband. We are investing £5 million a year over 3 years. That's going to be match funded by the government and by the private sector to build up to a fund of £20 million. So that will make a significant difference in connecting businesses, individuals, particularly in rural areas, to broadband, which will enable them to, as I say, improve their businesses and for the benefit of everybody in Essex.
You've announced that Essex County Council's share of the council tax will be frozen for the second successive year. How is the council managing its budget to achieve all the initiatives that have been outlined today?
Well, I'd say with great difficulty, but fortunately we've started planning for this 3 or 4 years ago, and we set up our transformation programme, a 4-year programme which finishes at the end of 2012-13. And that's taking £300 million out of our budget, mainly from efficiencies and savings and changing the way that we run our business. Because we've started that work early, and because we've been remarkably successful in that transformation programme, we are able to reduce the amount that we have to reduce our services by. So we're in a good financial position, as good as any other council, to protect the valuable services that we want to deliver to the people of Essex.